correctly recall events that the other one supposedly saw while in this trip. Because of this, some believe that LSD is not merely a hallucinogenic, but a way of unlocking the mind, of separating one's soul or spirit from their physical body. And this concept of LSD not being so much a drug as much as it is a key can be frightening. What is it a key to? What's out there that we can't see? And that question is one of the main factors that gives Smothered Horse Eyes its terror. I wanted to lay all that groundwork now because the third post, which was made like an hour after the second post, just gets worse. I'm surprised they used nuclear subs in the Falklands, considering the battle's proximity to the undersea incident zone surrounding the so-called Arctic portals. As I understand it, the portal was opened because of experiments taking place in the CIA's Antarctic station in the early 80s, and Falklands quickly became a center for portal research. Being underwater, the portal had an enormous incident zone. Segmented whales and other undersea debris would regularly wash up on the island shores. They found one well that had been segmented cleanly in half by an incident zone disturbance, proving a perfect cross-section of the creature. The timeline jumps forward a bit to the 1980s and tells us that there was an underwater Arctic portal. The portals, as we'll see, are closely related to flesh interfaces. Arctic is a real-world research base in Antarctica, and the author tells us that nearby CIA Antarctic stations were conducting experiments that led to the creation of the Arctic portal. The author says he's surprised that they would put submarines so close to the Arctic portal, but the Falklands are still over 700 miles away from Antarctica. So what is this portal that's 700 miles away? You may not want to put submarines there. The author goes on to say that since this portal was underwater, it had a massive incident zone. What is an incident zone? Well, the author says that any whales or other undersea creatures that got in the incident zone were segmented. What is segmenting, you may ask? Well, have you ever seen like a dissection of an animal and they cut the pieces of the animal into segments? That, only it's all at once and happens unexpectedly, and things just get cut in half. So these portals can appear underwater, and because they're underwater, they have large incident zones that bisects anything that goes in them. So the Arctic portal, which was caused by the CIA, is underwater, and because it's underwater, it has really big incident zones that cut up anything that comes into them. Note that the author doesn't say incident zones only occur because it's underwater, it just says the zone is larger, meaning that the ones above ground probably also have areas that if you enter them, you get sliced up. The other thing they mention is that around the underwater portal, there were hundreds of chitinous cruciform creatures. Chitinous most often refers to creatures that have an exoskeleton or hard shell, and cruciform is anything that has the shape of a cross. Not like an X, like the Christian cross. So there are hundreds of these really large cross-shaped lobster things, which I guess a lobster is kind of a cruciform itself, isn't it? Maybe these are just really big lobsters. You will get almost no explanation as to what the chitinous cruciforms are until like the last 10 parts of the story. But all you need to know for now is that these portals being opened make some really weird things come out. Now, it seems that the United States and the CIA aren't the only people interested in LSD and flesh interfaces, as the next part describes what the Soviets were doing during the Cold War. The Soviets designated large portions of the Ukraine countryside as harvest populations. Basically, their food and water supplies were dosed with LSD until they had achieved what the Soviets called integration. This meant that the local populations had independently invented flesh interfaces. They designated large populations within Ukraine as harvest populations. Or in other words, people's food and water supply was being dosed with LSD, and this dosing caused them to build flesh interfaces. It seems the secrets of what LSD could do were known by several major world powers. After these interfaces were built, the Soviets would then try to harvest the interface, and that rarely went well. Once again, we get a mention of a great loss of life. We also get our confirmation that these incident zones and segmenting don't just happen underwater, as several of the Soviets that tried to retrieve the interfaces were segmented. However, we get a really interesting detail about segmentation when our author says, what's interesting is that the people could live for quite some time despite segmentation. And it led the Soviets to believe that perhaps the cut-off pieces still existed, just in some unknown place. So people are not being cut apart, as in their arm is cut from their body and the arm falls to the ground. They step into an area and their arm just disappears. Not only that, but people who were segmented in ways that should have absolutely killed them, like cut in half of their body simply disappeared, but they kept living. Almost as if the piece of them that was segmented was not cut off, but simply moved to another place. Still biologically attached to them, but physically moved to another location. There's also mention at the end of this part that a lot of the Soviets assumed this was because of interdimensionality. Or in other words, perhaps the cut off pieces were being transported to another dimension. The author makes note that they were quite mistaken. And in fact they were, as we'll see what happened to those pieces later in the narrative. I also don't want the dry humor of this whole series to be lost. Like, all the parts I'm reading were just commented on completely unrelated Reddit posts. Like the one I just read about the Soviets and LSD and harvest populations was in reply to someone on r/data is beautiful talking about the quality of driving in certain countries. And Mother Horse Eyes replies and just says, the Soviets designated large portions of the Ukraine countryside as harvest populations. And you can still see replies where people are like, what are you talking about? And again, at first, all of these were posted almost simultaneously. People would see the comment and have no idea that it's a part of a greater narrative. And because of that, you can probably see how this garnered attention so quickly. Because you see that reply and you have to know what this dude is smoking, so you go to his account and see that he's been doing the same thing across a ton of different subreddits. And the stories, while disjointed, seem to be connected. It's a great way to use the medium not only to tell a unique story, but to advertise itself. Speaking of advertising yourself, I've got new merch right now. Look, the plug had to come at some point. Let's just get it over with. Right now, you can get the Brainwash collection with the cool Panopticon design. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, the Panopticon design shirt, as well as the matching shorts and the Keep Watching fanny pack. Get it? Because it's like always watching Orwellian, but keep watching because I'm a YouTuber. Ha ha ha. This set will be available for a couple weeks at the link in the description at wendigoon.shop. Get it while you can before it's gone for good. And thank you all for the support. If you decide to pick anything up, it means the world. The next part of our story says that a series